Troy here with SFP Nostalgia Motorsports, and today is an awesome day. I got some parts here, primarily for the Filthy Falcon. We did get the Falcon running in the last video, so there were some parts that I needed, and I will explain as I go through this. Let's start with the small box here that I got from Summit. The first item, which sounds kind of funny, but I needed to pick up a fuel pressure regulator for the car. The reason being, those Autolite carburetors, and it doesn't matter if it's a single barrel like what's on the Falcon or even 4 barrels, Autolites anyway, they're very sensitive to fuel pressure. And the problem is a lot of the replacement pumps, including the one that I purchased for the Falcon, the PSI that they're putting out is slightly higher than what was originally with an OEM unit. So the problem there is once I got the car fired up and it would fill up the fuel bowl, it was actually, the pressure was overpowering the needle and seat, and it was like a geyser. So I've seen that happen even on rebuilt carburetors. So I'm not going to take any chances. I'm going to rebuild that Autolite, but I'm also going to install this fuel pressure regulator. The other thing I had to get, a regulator really isn't any good unless you can tell what pressure you're actually putting out on the output side. So I got a cheap Summit fuel pressure gauge that I'm going to use with it. I also needed some fittings. So I bought some fittings. The barbed fitting here, which will go onto one side of the regulator, the fuel line will be on the other side, and then it also has the port in it for the fuel pressure gauge. Since I'm only running a single outlet for this regulator, I needed to buy a plug for the other side. So we have a regulator, a plug, and then we also have the barbed fitting for the other side and the fuel pressure gauge. So pretty simple, but it sounds kind of funny because it's usually on performance-oriented stuff, but I'm going to be using it on the original inline 6 because of the Autolite carburetor. Let me tell you a funny story about Autolite carburetors. My parents bought a 69 Torino, brand new in 1969. The Autolite carburetor that was on there started flooding within the first 2 weeks of actually owning that car. My dad took it back to the dealership. The dealership worked on it a bit and said, hey, this is a problem with these Autolites, and it's one of those things that you have to live with. They're finicky. So that Autolite carburetor didn't last too long. Within only a few weeks of owning the car, my dad had a 600 Holly on it. So it's the same for these single barrel Autolites as well. I have that 8-inch rear for the Falcon, and that's going to convert the rear tires, or the rear wheels, that I'll be able to use a 5-lug pattern. But what are we going to do about the front? Well, I think I mentioned it in the video where I talked about the rear end, that with the front, it's kind of all or nothing. When you do a 5-lug conversion to the front of a Falcon or a Comet, you run into some steering changes that have to take place. So that's perfect for when you're doing the swap, but if you're not ready to do the V8 swap like I am, you can't convert the steering over because of the spindles and all of that stuff being different for a V8 car. So I need wheels for the front of the Falcon, and that's what we bought right here. The reason I need wheels is because it came with some aluminum ones that I really just don't like on the front of the car, and the back spacing's kind of funky on it. So I bought some smoothies from Wheel Ventique. So these smoothies, they started making them in 15-inch, and I was waiting for this for a while. I had seen in a newsletter from Wheel Ventique a couple of years back that they were going to start making these. A narrow 15 by 5. But These are in, so this is a 4-on-4 bolt pattern. I'm sorry, a 4 1/4 and a 4 1/2 on 4-inch bolt pattern. What's cool about this is the back spacing's 3-inch, so it will work with the Falcon just fine. But the other reason I got these is because this will also fit the 61 Buick, being that it's a 4 1/4 and a 4 1/2 on 4. So this is pretty cool. So what I'm going to end up doing is just putting steel wheels on the back that are 5 lug for the Falcon, and then I'm going to run these on the front until I'm ready to do my V8 conversion. And what's awesome is that they're only 5-inch in width, and they're 15-inch diameter, which is perfect for the look I'm going for. And they're pretty cheap. They're in the neighborhood, depends where you buy them. They're anywhere from, I think I've seen them as low as 62, 64 bucks up to around $70. So the quality of them is really good. The welds are always really nice, and these are, let's see if these, I have Wheel Ventique on the Chevelle, and they were stamped, yep, made in the USA. So the steel wheels from Wheel Ventique are made in the USA. So we're buying American as well. I will be painting these a semi-gloss black, just like I did with the Chevelle. Probably not running any type of a sender cap on the front for the time being, which might look a little goofy because of the multi-lug pattern, but I really don't care. It's going to be functional. Today, I got some more parts for the Falcon. And if you can tell by the shape of these things, I think you know exactly what it is. Suspension parts. So here we have leaf springs, which we'll unwrap, and in this box here we've got a couple of items which are going to be awesome. We have brand new coil springs. And I'll tell you exactly what these are going to be here in a moment. So we got our coil springs there. We got another box of some hardware here. All right, so one thing at a time here. The coil springs. Right now, the Filthy Falcon has springs on the front that were cut. They had, I think, 2 coils cut out of it. That nose is down in the weeds. And the car did come with factory springs. But the idea from day one for the Falcon was to pay respect to the early AFX cars, and just the early cars of that era, the cars from 64 through the late 60s that were actually seeing track time. And they were all a bit nose high, which you don't see too many Falcons like that except for straight axle cars. And this isn't going to be a straight axle car. This is going to be using coil springs up front. And these springs here that I had made for the car should bring the nose up roughly 1.75 inches above what the stock height would be. So right now, with it being in the weeds, it's going to raise it quite a bit. So this should be pretty cool. And also in the future, the car is going to have an 8. Right now it has a 6. So I'm going to install these in the near future, even with the 6, because we're going to use the car like that for a little while. But it will bring the nose up. I'm really anxious to see exactly if it's the way I envision it. So this is one of the big keys to the way the car is going to look, because the stance of a car makes it or breaks it. By the way, all of these components here came from a company called ESPO Springs and Things. I've had luck with them before. One of the reasons I keep going back, they are extremely nice people just to deal with. And customer service these days, I mean, it makes or breaks a company. And this company, I remember being a kid and going to Carlisle and seeing them with their trailer there, and they used to sell parts right there at the Carlisle Fairgrounds. I'm not sure if they go to many shows anymore. They do mainly the mail order thing, but still great people to deal with. So we have some bolts in here. We've got our U-bolts, and I'll tell you what all these items are here shortly. I'm unboxing this, of course, for the first time. Alright. So, for our springs, we have plates that go underneath the rear axle that are actually going to hold the spring pack in place. So you have to have U-bolts, and I chose to put on brand new U-bolts. It's always a good idea. I think I have my plates over here. Just wait one moment. Alright. These are the plates I'm referring to that go underneath the spring pack, and the shock actually bolts to it as well. Here you can see these are the original U-bolts, and here are the new ones. And these actually go up over the top of the axle and hold everything in bushings. So we have new bushings and our shackles. So those are new. So we need 2 shackles, of course, and 4 bushings per back, I should say. And then we have our new bolts for the front of the spring. Let me move this stuff off to the side here. Let's get these springs open. I'm sorry, I'm excited. This is like Christmas morning. Now, as far as these springs, what I ended up buying were ones that they're a 4 spring pack, and that's what you'd see on a Falcon Sprint. So they're for a V8 car, but they're the smaller spring pack. You can get a 5 spring pack, but I really did not want this to be up in the air in the back too much. Now I'm sure the springs that are on my car right now have settled, so this will lift the back end up a little bit, but I just didn't want it to be excessive. Okay, these are actually cable tied together so that they stay secure for shipping. So we'll go through this and snip all of those. Leaf springs are heavier than you think. Alright, here we go. So this would be, you can see I mentioned a 4-leaf pack. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a 4-leaf pack. This would be a standard pack for like a Falcon Sprint of like 64, 65, 1964, 65. And just looking at them, the quality of them looks good. These do have a bushing in the front, so you notice that we have our shackle bushings that I showed you. So here are the shackle bushings. So we've got two on the bottom, so 4 bushings per. So that's why this end over here, right here, does not have the bushings in, because that would be your shackle end. So it should be a factory stance in the back, and then with our coils, we should raise that nose a bit. Again, these should be around an inch and 3/4 above the factory Falcon V8 ride height in the front, because I want to bring that nose up a little bit. So this is it right here. I just wanted to share this with everybody. And oh, I am keeping tabs of every little nickel I spend on this car, or dime I spend on this car. So just to give you an idea, the front coils, they were exactly $80, and then the rear spring pack here was right around $200. These particular ones were $115 a piece. And then shackles and bushings and stuff, you're talking, I have about $40, $50 into that. So what I'll start doing is tallying up, and I'll share that with you guys too. Wheels for it. I also had to get the fuel pressure regulator for the car. So I need a carburetor rebuild kit, because the idea is I just want to get this car running good enough to move it, because we haven't even driven this car yet. So I need to make sure that this transmission shifts good, because the idea here is to take the steps of how I would have built a car when I was a teenager. And these are the things that I did first to the Chevelle. I got the Chevelle on the road, and then I realized that the front was a little bit too low because I was always scraping headers whenever I'd go in and out of gas station, or even on country roads. I'd hit a bump and the headers would hit the ground. So I'm taking the same approach. Things I've learned with building other cars, I'm taking the same approach here, and I want to share this with you to show that a young adult or a young kid just getting their license can build an old car cheap. I don't want people to be turned off by old cars. I'd like to turn people on to the old cars. That's the whole idea behind this channel, and sharing the things that I like to buy for mine to build, and hopefully this type of thing will work for you. So that's all I want to share with you. We're going to be doing the suspension. This will allow us also to get that 8-inch rear in the car. That's going to be going in the car the exact same time we put the springs in. So that measly little tiny rear axle that's in the Falcon right now is going to come out with the springs all together, and then I'm going to put the springs with the 8-inch rear in the car and get that buttoned up. And then we're going to move to the front, because the nice thing will be, once the 8-inch rear is in, then we can mount 5 lug wheels to it. And I just so happen to have some Chevy Rally wheels that I can put on that are the right bolt pattern. I know they don't look right because they were on the Chevelle and it's a Chevy wheel, but it's just to get the car moving, because I want to make sure that the transmission and other drivetrain components work. So thank you everyone for watching. I hope you're getting as excited as I am about this. Go out, find yourself a project. Remember, this is all on a budget. You don't have to be a rich person to own an old car and enjoy an old car. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care.